who are present and who have signed up to testify. I have what looks like 4 different signatories this morning for the public forum. What I'd like to do is call 2 names at a time. When I call your name, please come on up to one of the 2 microphones here at the front table. There's a button by the microphone. If it's red, it means it's off. Please make sure that the button is green before you begin speaking, and you will have 3 minutes of time to share your public testimony for the public record today. You can provide any additional comments in writing, and we have received some comments in writing this morning, and TriMet staff can provide an email address for where to send those comments if you do not already have them. And now I'd like to ask for the following people to come up to the table. And I'll ask for your pardon in advance if I mispronounce your name. I'll do my best here. We have Kurt Krager and Allison Segler. Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. Hi, my name is Allison Segler, and I'm not on, okay. And I just want to say thank you, and I'll let you know how the TriMet and PPI partnership has affected my life. When I had my interview for the safety response team in October of 2021, I knew I was definitely in the right place. For the first time in my life, my specific skills and life experience were considered valuable and would be utilized in a job setting. Not only would my quality of life be improved, but I would be beneficial and purposeful in helping my people. I'm the longest working employee as an SRT, and there are others on the team like me with lived experience. I am 50 years old, and I have been drug and alcohol addicted since the age of 11. I've been homeless and lived on the streets, committed crimes, and frequented jail and prison. I now have been sober and drug-free as of 3/26/21, and just a few months ago, I signed for my first apartment that I pay for myself, that is not a halfway house or residential treatment facility or subsidized in any way. It's my place. I just got my driver's license for the first time and have held a job where I'm a superstar for over 18 months. This is my first job that I've held in my life for more than just a few months. And now I will soon achieve my 2-year anniversary this October. When I finish this speech, I'm going to walk up the street to PPI and just 2 streets over and put on my uniform and help make Portland a better place, just like I do every day, with kindness, compassion, empathy, and respect. I love helping my community, and this position created by the TriMet and PPI partnership has given me the opportunity to shine and be a shining example to others. My name is Allison Segler, and thank you for your time and believing in this partnership, because that means that you believe in me. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this morning.
Good morning, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. Kurt Krieger. I'm with Bridge Housing. Bridge is a 40-year-old mission-driven nonprofit that was created to relieve the burdens of government through the provision of affordable housing. We've been doing that now from San Diego to Seattle for the last 40 years. We've developed over 20,000 units of housing. I'm here today speaking on behalf of Bridge to affirm and support the recommendations of staff for the terms of agreement for the FTA Joint Development Agreement. Hollywood Hub is a momentous project that knits together transit equity and housing equity. Speaking for the housing program, it's 222 permanently affordable housing units located on the current Hollywood Transit Center. It happens to be a high-rise construction. It is really fully funded by the city of Portland and our financial partners. So we are proceeding with all due haste to apply for permits this fall and to start construction next summer. Hacienda CDC is our partner for the provision of resident services to ensure that the people that live there are being properly supported. And I would just want to affirm that TriMet has been a great partner in conceiving this project and engaging the neighborhood in over 60 meetings that occurred throughout the pandemic. While this has been a long time coming, we're happy that we're ready to launch, And I know staff will be presenting later on. You'll have a chance to get into the details at that time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing that. Next, for the public forum, we have Eli Ritchie and Ryan Emery. Please make your way to the table. Be my guest.
Hello, my name is Eli Ritchie. It's been a month since I stood before you, members of the TriMet board, to share my experience of retaliation for exercising my First Amendment rights. Alas, despite my earnest appeal, it seems my voice has been devoured by an abyss of indifference. A response from your board I have not received. The frustration brews. In my quest for positive change, I turn to these avenues provided, engaged in public dialogue through my testimony, hoping that my concerns of public transportation would be heeded, and said I am left disheartened, as the walls of bureaucracy have confined my words to an echo and empty corridors. Customer service I did seek through Twitter DMs, funny enough, in hopes of finding a receptive ear, yet their response offered little solace but to pass the buck, directing me to legal departments and public information officers. A cycle of indifference has become. A genuine concern from riders is met with a bureaucratic runaround. One particular response, the epitome of misunderstanding, stung me further. I'm sorry to hear the reaction of your filming has been negative, they said. Perhaps it's viewed as harassment, they implied. In this response, TriMet reveals a glaring miscomprehension of the core issues at hand, the reaction to a protected act rather than the act itself. It sheds light on the possible lack of understanding and training on passenger rights within your organization. Why, I wonder, do you provide avenues for public testimony if the voices raised are met with apathy? What is the point of sharing our experiences and concerns if they are simply brushed aside? As a responsible and accountable transportation agency, TriMet must demonstrate a commitment to actively address their rider concerns, not with empty words, but with meaningful action. The right to free speech to express grievances and ideas lies at the heart of a thriving democracy. Yet it appears that the essence of these fundamental rights is slipping away like sand through our fingers. I implore you, members of the TriMet board, to uphold the principles of transparency and accountability and to take immediate action to address the retaliation faced by individuals exercising their First Amendment rights. A mere acknowledgement of these issues will not suffice. Tangible steps are needed to create an environment where riders' concerns are genuinely listened to and acted upon. Your organization must invest in proper training to ensure employees, including drivers, understand and respect passengers' rights to film and express their opinions. It is through the commitment to protecting these rights that TriMet can truly strive to be a public service. In conclusion, I stand here not as a mere complainer, but as a rider who cares deeply about our community and the services it relies on. My hopes is that my words will not fall on indifferent ears this time, but rather that will speak will spark a genuine introspection and lead to real change. Thank you for your time, though the sincerity of my gratitude lies in the actions that you take from this point forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your words and thank you for the written testimony.
You're welcome.
Brian?
Hey. Hey, so how do I start? My concern is the use of EV buses. So I appreciate that committee is dedicated to climate change and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure we can agree that we should pursue the safest option when it comes to that. As when it comes to EV buses, to my knowledge, when on rough terrain, the battery can get unstable, and there's a chance it can catch on fire. So which is the reason why I propose an alternative. So like for example, trolley buses. So which has been in use since the night. Well, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah. So as it comes to trolley buses, they're connected to a wire, so they don't have to wait that long to charge up, and well, don't have to worry about catching on fire in the first place. And another thing about EV buses is the material they're made from, which is cobalt. And as far as I know, currently, cobalt isn't really environmentally friendly when mined. Yeah. As one example is mining in Congo and other places. And that's all I have to say for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. You bring up some very valid points about the technologies, and I think it points out we don't have one panacea that's going to address them all, but we really appreciate your perspective on this.
Thank you.
Okay, I have, unless there are other signatories that have signed up for public forum, I have no others in the room today that have signed up for the public forum in person. Seeing none, I'm going to move to our attendees. Oh, that's embarrassing. Attendees that have signed up for virtual testimony, and I have one. So if that individual, Jason Jablau, is available, we can give you the floor, Jason, to open the mic and share your testimony this morning.
Yes, I am available. Thank you very much for the opportunity. As someone who has served on a board of directors, I am acutely aware of the benefit of allowing public testimony. The reason for this is due to my need, I guess, to maybe understand what's going on. My personal experience is that a few months back, I had an accident at the Hollywood Transit Center due to negligent upkeep at the transit center. And as a mobility impaired person, I ended up taking a fall and was only helped up because some people on a train that arrived helped me. I contacted TriMet right away about the situation so that other people would not have the same experience. And after a week of inactivity, the only reason something got done was because I got to a point of having to constantly pester and badger TriMet to act on it. It personally was something I didn't quite understand the inaction, but it did eventually get resolved. So in that respect, I was happy. I also have this experience where, since I can't use the stairs at the Hollywood Transit Center, I am often stuck not being able to get home by being on the platform because the elevator will be blocked with homeless people doing the various things that happen in that elevator. Sometimes I'm stuck for as much as 30 to 45 minutes. So I was heartened when you guys fixed the situation by installing that device that allowed only people that had valid fare, because for the month that that was in place, I never had a single day where there was any issues, even just from an aesthetic sense. And then you guys took it away. And I suppose that was what brought me here, because I do not understand how a organization solves a problem that is an obvious problem and then somehow decides to unsolve it. Now, I understand the concept of pilot programs and things of that nature, but I don't understand how you can solve something and then take it away from people who need it. I also don't, I guess as somebody who takes the MAX every day into downtown, I do not understand when I hear the announcement about valid fare being required, because that's not the case. It's not the case on buses either. And I see that you have, security, but nobody ever seems to do anything. I see a lot of people who stand around, but there seems to be no action. And so I guess I want to leave you with, hopefully maybe one day I can get an answer to the question of what are you doing to solve the problems? Because it doesn't look like anything is being done. Thank you very much for your time, for my time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for coming today and sharing your perspective, Jason. I'm sorry to hear about that incident, but I'm glad to hear that you were able to get some help from a community member. I know that we did have a pilot in place, and I anticipate we will be hearing some outcomes from that. And if you stick around today, we will have some items on the agenda that are addressing what some of our public safety officers are doing out in the system. So stay tuned for that. And with that, I believe we have no other testimonies. Okay, no other testimonies in the public forum. And so now, I'd like to move us now, if there's no other members signed up to testify, I will close the public forum and open the business meeting. So with that, I'd like to begin with board reports. We have just one this morning. I believe we have a second this morning. We may get a second. Yes, Director Edwards. So I'd like to begin with Director Edwards to provide an update from the latest meeting on Committee on Accessible Transportation, CAT. Director Edwards?
Thank you very much. First, I want to apologize for my late arrival today, but I was able to make it here. The CAT meeting we had a great meeting last week. I just have a brief report, but there's a more comprehensive staff report as well. But I just wanted to highlight some issues. Staff had a pilot program at the Hollywood stop, and they were looking at the elevator there, and they did a comprehensive study of that particular site, and there were no shutdowns during that period of time that they did the pilot project, and it came off very well. And there are a few things that they still have to work on in regards to accessing the elevator. One of those may be having personnel there, certainly early on in the program, that will be able to help folks access the elevator to make sure it is available to the passengers that are using it. And that will not only be at that site, but it'll be the other sites as well. During that discussion, though, we also ended up, we discovered that there is a program that really helps the honored citizens and the low-income citizens that are riding on TriMet in regards to a huge enhancement delivery of groceries that they have. They have a service that is available to those citizens that those honored citizens and low income that are using TriMet. So that's a big plus, and we were really pleased about that. I had another piece and I lost it that quick, but it was Pat Williams came and gave us a great report on the safety and security of the system. And there were really some major concerns that we had in regard to safety and security, given the current environment that's out there today. And the main thing is that the safety and security staff have increased. And that's been a big plus, because with their presence, a lot of the incidents have gone away. And what we're going to be pushing on is try to make sure that we get the word out to passengers so that they have a better feeling of safety when they're riding on TriMet, and whether it's a bus or the light rail. The biggest challenge is that earlier on, folks were concerned about riding the bus. Now folks are more concerned about riding the light rail, simply because of some of the activities that have been going on from the general public. But we are addressing those issues, and safety is a major concern. And Pat shared with us that he will be increasing the staff to provide more safety and security for those riding the TriMet bus. So with that, that's all I have for my report today.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Are there any questions, comments from board members from the CAT report?
I just want to say thank you for the overview of the discussion around the Hollywood elevator pilot. As we just heard, I've gotten a lot of feedback from members in my district as well, which is not in my district, but it is close, that they found that to be a really helpful pilot. So I look forward to getting an update on when that's coming, or what the next steps are.
Thank you, Director Edwards. And I might have been mistaken then. Are there other reports this week? I know that Finance and Audit Committee did not meet in the last month. And I don't have a report from MPAC that was provided. And I don't believe TIAC met in the last month either. So I would say that we are now starting to look at our new committee assignments. So I anticipate in the coming board meeting, we will have some not only new committee assignments, but some ongoing committee reports. So thank you for that, Director Edwards. And now I'd like to move us into the General Manager's monthly report. General Manager Dessou.
All right. Good morning, President Gonzalez, members of the board, our new board members. Welcome as well. TriMet staff, good morning to you and the public. Thank you for being here. This morning, I will be sharing timely information with you on our June ridership. Also, I'm going to share the positive news about 82nd Avenue, the tour that we had with U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Also, I'll share more good news about TriMet's bond rating. And then I will preview our first major service change from the Forward Together service concept, which rolls out about a month from today. And then I will take a moment to share the scenes of our TriMet's participation in the Portland's Pride Parade. Also provide an update on transit-oriented development projects. And then finally give a staffing update to you. So let's take a look at June ridership. So TriMet provided 5.1 million rides for the month of June. That's up about 11.5% over June of 2022. Our weekly system ridership remains about 37% off of where it was before the pandemic. June ridership was impacted by our ongoing MAX red line disruption for Better Red, which that work started in June 18th. The red line is not running between the airport and Gateway and the Portland International Airport. So shuttle buses are serving that area throughout that stretch. And as the remainder of the section of this Better Red work continues, it will end on October 21st. So that's the update on ridership there, but kind of great news. TriMet has been awarded $630,000 grant from the Federal Transit Administration for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. I want to thank Congressman Earl Blumenauer's office, who made the announcement late last week. It came within 2 weeks of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg's visit to Portland, which included a tour of 82nd Avenue from a TriMet electric bus. I had the opportunity to ride along with the Secretary and other dignitaries on that trip. As we traveled through the beautiful, diverse, and vital economic corridor, we highlighted all of the challenges and also the opportunities that it presents. One of those is improving transit. As transit is always a connector to opportunity, with the FTA's Areas of Persistent Poverty grant, we'll begin to tap into the potential of 82nd Avenue. And the funding is really going to support improved safety, access, and mobility while further exploring the potential for a TriMet FX high-capacity bus line on 82nd Avenue, along with the use of zero-emissions buses. So we are extremely grateful for that award and the work that will help initiate to bring better, faster, and cleaner transportation options to our region. I want to say for the 9th year running, Moody's Investor Service recognized TriMet's credit worthiness by reaffirming our AAA bonding status. I want to thank the finance team and all of the work that they've been doing over the years. But this recognition acknowledges the strength of our government-issued bonds and demonstrates TriMet's strong fiscal management and stable long-term forecasts. This rating also that was described by Moody as outstanding allows us to secure credit funding for the lowest possible costs as we finance important projects to keep our transit service and our riders moving. So TriMet was that first special tax-backed transit agency to achieve a AAA rating from Moody's back in 2015. We also was the first transit agency in the nation to have that special tax-backed bond rate, AAA, by 3 rating agencies in 2018. It was Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and then KBRA. Next update is our Forward Together, and I know a lot of you have interest about what we're doing there, but our Forward Together service improvements is going to bring better connections to jobs and economic opportunities. And that's what we're about. That's our core mission, is to take people opportunities and make sure that they succeed in life. And we're just about a month away from our first big service change that's planned. You'll recall that through Forward Together, through the process itself, we engaged the community and worked with Jared Walker and Associates. And Jared is a transit industry consultant and a thought leader throughout the world, actually. And with their help and support, TriMet conducted the most in-depth and thorough review of our bus service ever. Our first major packet of improvements is coming from that process and will be rolled out on Sunday, August 27th. With those, we are expanding our frequent service network. This means that buses and trains will arrive every 15 minutes or better, most of the days, every day. And we're going to deliver more and better service on more than a half a dozen bus lines. So look for more buses arriving often and for more hours of the day. And we're adjusting all of our routes as we move forward. And this is really going to help us to speed up our system and streamline service, especially for those who rely on transit or have limited means. So under this plan, some people who live in our region also will see fewer options because the Forward Together plan seeks to reallocate service from a higher income and lower ridership areas to those where it will better be utilized. And as a result, a handful of bus lines will see less service, and some will be canceled altogether as we try to remove duplication. So in many cases where a line is removed or adjusted, it's because there are other good options nearby. So we will have much more information that we'll be talking about ahead, both at this meeting and at our next meeting here. I've always been proud to work at TriMet, and when we walked with our employees and their families in this year's Pride Parade, that feeling was especially strong. I want you to take a look. We're going to put some things up here on the screen, but take a look at the screen to see some of the photos from that event while I provide a recap. About 100 TriMet employees participate. We had TriMet Pride t-shirts designed by local high schoolers. The shirt proclaimed "All are welcome" on the front, and on the back paid homage to the iconic drag queen Darcel. 2 TriMet buses rolled in the parade, one full-size and the other paratransit. Both were decorated with a vivid and colorful imagery displaying historical LGBTQ+ figures and the diversity of the communities we serve. All along that route, we heard parade goers cheering TriMet. It was so uplifting to hear the words of thanks and praise and lots of people saying, "We love TriMet." It was a great event. I want to just thank the employees that was there, thank the public that really acknowledged TriMet, but I just want to let you know this is how life moves in Portland, and this is who we are. Turning now to the update on our transit-oriented development program. Earlier this month, Multnomah County kicked off the transformation of our previous Gresham City Hall park and ride, and I was happy to join Vice President Lewis and representatives from across the region and take part in the groundbreaking of that project, taking a piece of asphalt and turning it into a community gathering place. It was absolutely wonderful to be there. And I have both Guy Ben and Fiona Lyon, who is going to come up and kind of share some of that along with our TOD updates. Oh, so I was just told that Fiona, actually Fiona was at the event with me and Shelley and others. She was telling me that she was getting ready to have a baby. I was just whispered in my ear that she had the baby yesterday.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
give her a big round of applause.
I didn't even know that she was pregnant.
So Miles Anderson is going to join Guy here on that. So Guy, I really appreciate it, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, General Manager Dessou. Good morning, President Gonzalez, members of the board. For the record, my name is Guy Ben, and I'm the Program Manager of TriMet's TOD program. With me, as General Manager Dessou said, is my colleague Miles Anderson, is also an integral part of the team. And we want to stress this is very much a team effort. What you see today is a lot of work by a lot of different staff across the agency and with partners as well. Our update today covers two exciting projects that will soon start construction on underused TriMet sites. Our first update is on the Hollywood Transit Center. We've presented this project to the board several times, and we secured board approval for revised transaction for the joint development terms in December of 2021. We're returning today to provide a progress update, and we'll be requesting approval for the revised transaction terms in a new resolution later in today's meeting. To refresh the board and for the benefit of its new members, this and the next slide show the infrastructure and housing projects today and how they were in December of 2021. The main elements of change are a materially improved and refined infrastructure project with a more efficient and spacious ramp and stair structure, a wider paseo and streamlined operations. And that you can see on the right-hand plan on the slide. It's marked paseo. You can see the ramp area at the bottom right-hand corner. There is also a better and more contextual housing project, and Kurt Krieger of Bridge Housing already spoke in public testimony this morning about the project, that now provides 224 affordable units that include 2 caretaker units in a single-phase U-shaped building with better public access and private spaces. We received a favorable resolution on a difficult-to-develop area boundary that bisects the site. This enabled us to consolidate 2 separate developments into a single project. It allowed the addition of 11 additional affordable housing units and a better unit mix. And it greatly improved the project economics, with a low-income housing tax credit boost available across the whole site, reducing the total public subsidy that's needed for the housing. The comprehensive redesign also allowed the following: an additional ground floor activation, including TriMet staff space and a corner retail unit, improved public access and infrastructure corridor comprising the full width of the former 42nd Avenue, which is a 64-foot wide street. And it allowed improved connectivity between the public and the private spaces, and a more prominent tribute space that will replace the current temporary artwork. Reinforcing the benefit of these changes, both the infrastructure and the housing projects secured successful land use approvals and Design Commission praise for their comprehensive and thoughtful treatment of the site redesign. This slide shows some of the images from the earlier 2021 design. As you can see, there was previously an L-shaped building that provided around 213 units. It was a phased development program with a small footprint phase 2 site. fronting Halsey Street, and there was a narrower ramp and stair structure with more limited access to the future Sullivan's Gulch trail space. A major catalyst for the project redesign was a strong rebuttal from the City of Portland Design Commissioners at the design advice request hearing that was held in December 16th, 2021. The project team has continued to maintain a strong working relationship with the City of Portland and its officials and staff, and we're grateful for their continued support on the project. Next slide, please. So this slide summarizes the current infrastructure project status. Progress has been very rapid since securing the favorable DDA boundary resolution and subsequent project redesign. And now both the infrastructure and housing projects are at 100% detailed design, or the 100% DD stage. Both projects successfully secured land use approvals in the spring, and the initial permits for the infrastructure project have been filed. Portland City Council also formally approved the street vacation this May, and paperwork is being finalized to complete this vacation before construction will begin in November. And the overall development timetable is outlined at the bottom right of this slide. It's worth noting that TriMet and Bridge are also continuing its outreach to all stakeholders so that they remain informed before and during construction, thus minimizing the impact of the future building work. Next slide, please. Our second TOD presentation this morning is on TriMet's transaction with Multnomah County for its development of a new East County library at the Gresham City Hall Max stop. For reference, this site sits between downtown Gresham and City Hall on the Max Blue Line, with the Gresham Transit stop one stop to the east, and the Gresham Civic Station one stop west. We last presented this project to the board in December, and we're pleased to report that having entered into a letter of intent 13 months ago, the land sale to Multnomah County closed at the end of June, and the project team is preparing to start construction next month. The groundbreaking ceremony for the project, as General Manager Dessou mentioned, was recently celebrated on July 12th. Next slide, please. Like Hollywood, this is a big and exciting project with four main elements that are shown on this slide. Firstly, on the east side of the site is a new state-of-the-art library facility that will be a two-story, 95,000 square foot structure serving the residents of East Portland and beyond. The second element is a future TOD parcel on the west side of the site. TriMet expects this will become a mixed residential and retail building, and it plans to seek development partner solicitation once the library project is at or near completion. The third element is the new Civic Hub public realm space that sits between the library and the Max platform. This element has been made possible by a public-public partnership between Multnomah County, the City of Gresham, and TriMet, with support from Metro and NARA Northwest. Fourth, but equally important, is a new north-south public walkway easement that will connect the Max Blue Line station running parallel to the library, linking to TriMet's new FX services on Northwest Division. We'll now quickly look at the library and the Civic Hub elements in more detail. This slide is self-explanatory. Designed to reflect and honor the regional environment and ecosystem, the striking library project is advancing rapidly, with site grading and preparation starting very soon. Most recently, Gresham's Design Commission formally approved the county's development plans, allowing the project team to advance with permitting and construction. I'll pause for a moment so we can appreciate the quality of the project and the impact that it will have. Next slide, please. The Civic Hub public realm improvements are also advancing quickly. This element will be built at the same time as the library, delivered by the same professional team. The project partners, TriMet, City of Gresham, and Multnomah County, are each investing broadly equivalent amounts in the Civic Hub space, which is designed to host events and markets, as well as provide a connection to nature. Working with Multnomah County, Gresham, and Nara Northwest, TriMet was also successful in securing an additional $389,000 of Metro grant funding through its Nature in Neighborhoods program. While smaller than the library project, this Civic Hub element is equally exciting and a great template showing how public benefit can be delivered through TOD. This finishes today's TOD presentation, and we would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Guy and Miles. I appreciate that, that update. And I'll remind board members, if you have any questions or comments, we've got our little hand raisers. I saw you raise your hand. Please, Tyler.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. Thank you both so much for your time here today and your work. I've got a couple of questions on each project, so I don't know if you want me to just run through them and you pick and choose. Okay. Really excited about the improvements at the Hollywood Transit Center. It seems, and thank you to the Bridge team for coming here and working together through that process. Really appreciate that work. I would love to know and just better understand the impacts to the actual transit operations based on the site. So obviously construction is a mess. Once construction is done, how do we expect that to impact transit operations? And then what do we expect to see is the impact of ridership based on, I think it's 240 new units at that space?
Yes, so it's a very condensed presentation. As you can appreciate, both of these projects are pretty big and complicated and lots of moving parts. So very happy to take lots of questions. So the impact on ridership and operations, so I'll start with that piece. So our service planning team have been deeply involved from the start with this project, and we've conducted outreach within the community to discuss ridership and services. And it's also been linked in with the Forward Together planning that the agency has been conducting. So in the full service change, which I'm sure will be announced at a forthcoming board meeting, and the outreach is starting next month, the 75 and the 77 lines are going to move to temporary bus stops locations outside of the transit center space itself, which allows us to move forward with starting construction and temporary ramp and so on and so forth. The 66 line, which is a commuter line that serves from Hollywood up to Markham Hill, that is actually slated to be terminated as part of the Forward Together plan. So we're basically, we are moving bus stops for the 75 and the 77, but the services remain the same effectively. And those are going to be changes that will operate, they're going to run for roughly 2 years, or during the construction period. And obviously once the facilities are rebuilt back around the transit center, then they will move back to the new locations and new facilities. With regards to ridership, the project is 224 units total. 222 are two caretaker units for janitors and staff, and then the range of affordable housing. We've done calculations based on using Metro's model and our own internal model on ridership calculations. But effectively, where we're coming out as we anticipate that the project could deliver up small amount of car parking within the building. So we're assuming about 80% we're assuming 80% of residents within the building are going to be reliant on transit, and we're assuming based on the unit mix about 1.75 people per unit. So there's a significant amount of ridership that will be delivered by the project, and that in turn delivers obviously a significant amount of value to TriMet. We calculated, assuming that everybody that is sort of in the building and reliant on transit is used part of our low-income fare program, that there's up to perhaps $10 million worth of value to TriMet based on a net present value calculation of that ridership over 30 years.
Thank you so much. And again, just want to reiterate how wonderful it is to see this move forward as part of an affordable housing effort and community effort. And thank you to Senator Wyden and team for securing some of the work with HUD and the permissions we need with HUD. So thank you.
Indeed, good question, Director Frisbee. And Director Edwards, did I see your hand raised about a comment? Okay. Okay, I do have a question. And this is a question I'd love to have revisited in future TOD presentations as well. And the question is basically, what are we learning from this process? I would imagine by now with the Hollywood Transit project, we've had an opportunity to maybe crack a few eggs in making the omelet. But I'm wondering what we have learned with regards to either land use policy, partnership building with private and public dollars, anything with permitting that we might have learned that could help us apply into the Gresham project, anything around project delivery. Could you, and I know I'm springing this on you sort of on the fly, but if there's anything you know that we've learned up until now, it'd be great to share. And I continue to be interested in what we're learning along the way as we continue to explore TOD.
Unfortunately, we're learning that every project is a little different. So there's always different challenges. I think one of the elements that, success and you can get optimum results by, if we can align what we want to achieve and we work with partners, basically by entering into, and actually Gresham is a very good example in terms of delivering, sort of civic infrastructure through public partnership, and really leveraging, there's dollars coming from the Multnomah County Library Bond Fund that are being put to work to deliver a plaza, working with the City of Gresham that's allocated some money, working with TriMet that's allocated some money. And ultimately, both of these projects are effectively will become destinations. And that's our goal within the TOD program. But we can make better destinations if we can partner with other public agencies and make these civic spaces and community spaces. And not just public agencies, but local community groups. It's really trying to get that coalition together early within the projects, so that, and I think that's probably a very good lesson from Hollywood, and we didn't understand some of the city's requirements early on, but if we can get that together earlier, then that smooths away and makes things quicker later on, if that makes sense.
Thank you. To all of our agency partners out there, it's great to take some of these opportunities to build coalitions, as you well put now, when our interests align as far as our funding programs for capital improvement, and we realize the connection of transit and building infrastructure working together. I think we can get really far. Thank you for that report. Director Edwards?
Thank you. I'm kind of on the heels of that. I guess we had talked before about the transit-oriented development and TriMet's place in that, in utilizing our influence to try to make sure that we're good partners with the community and the neighborhoods that are affected by these changes. And I just wanted to reiterate, or maybe just remind you, that we wanted to make sure that there's services that are being made available by these developers to those tenants, so that we don't keep recreating the same wheel.
Thank you, Director Edwards. I mean, I think Kurt Krieger mentioned it, with the partnership with Hacienda and providing the supportive services to the residents within the building. We recognize the importance as well within projects of creating economic opportunities. And actually we touched on it in the presentation, but one of the changes that came about as a result of the redesign is TriMet will take back a retail unit at the Hollywood Transit Center space, which we have effectively on nil basis. So we can then make that affordable commercial space for a local business that can provide employment and opportunities. And we have been sort of sort of beginning to look at some models that exist in the Portland region that we've got organizations that are doing that. So that's sort of part of it. You know, I think the same thing applies to when we're looking at the Gresham project, what the opportunities there are for some commercial space and how does that tie into the project.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions on the TOD, I'd love to bring the floor back to you, General Manager Dessou.
I appreciate that, and thank you, Guy and Miles. Really appreciate the update.
Thank you.
So finally, President Gonzalez and Board, before I hand it back to you, just want to share a couple of staffing updates. Would like for you to please join me in welcoming Adriana Vidales Hernandez to TriMet. Want to just say she will be she's accepted the position as my new Senior Executive Assistant to the General Manager. She's going to be working very closely with me and the senior leadership team and also with you as well. And I would like to also, with that, she will not be alone. Felicia Thrash, who is sitting here, has graciously been helping support the board also during this time of transition, and she's done a phenomenal job with the board. So I'm happy to announce to you as well that Felicia has also accepted a new position with us. Will continue to support the board meetings from the administrative support of the board, while also fulfilling her duties too as the executive assistant to our legal team and Shelley Devine. So thank you both, and wanted to just give them a big round of applause.
Fabulous. Welcome aboard, Adriana. Glad to hear you're joining us, and it's great to have you on the team, Felicia. And Gwen, thank you for being part of this transition plan. We don't often get that enough, and so it's great to know that you're working together to make this a smooth process.
And we will definitely give Gwen a farewell when that time comes, but we're not ready for her to leave right now.
No rush.
And I've already told her.
2024 is fine.
Absolutely. And with that, President Gonzalez, that concludes my report this morning.
Thank you very much, General Manager Dessou. And I see we have a hand raised. Director Edwards.
Yes, thank you for that comprehensive report, but I really wanted to give the staff and you kudos as well for supporting the LGBTQI community. Our public face needs to be out there supporting all of our communities, and certainly they appreciated their service and the attendance there and supporting them in their celebration. So thank you again.
All right. Yes, I saw the itchy fingers. Yes, Director Frisbee.
I'm working on that. Thank you, President Gonzalez. Similarly, want to echo the appreciation from Director Edwards, but also General Manager Dessou. I'm wondering if the board can get a detailed update on the Forward Together, what lines, the changes that are going to happen next month, if it's possible to just get those emailed out.
We'll do that, and probably somewhere at the end of the board, I'll have Alan have something together before you leave. If not, we'll get it at in the next week.
Thank you so much.
And finally, I would love to just add my 2 cents on the recognition of the value that it has, not just to our community, but I think to our internal staff, for us to step outside and humanize one another, be ourselves, and I think participating in the parade, encouraging staff, wrapping those buses, has a lot of dividends in our community building. And at a time when we're trying to invite our riders to come back out, see what we've been doing, and at a time when we're trying to invite people to join the TriMet team and become a part of our operations, I think it's things like this that really show that, yes, all are welcome, yes, we are moving forward together, and it's great to see us out there in the community. So great to see us out there, and congrats to everyone that participated. I'm jealous I couldn't join you that day. And with that, I'd love to close up the General Manager's report. I do have one bit of housekeeping before we move to the next item on the agenda. I received a written summary of the MPAC meeting that occurred on June 28th. So for the record, I would love to make sure to get a little of information about what happened there for us today. So I'm going to jump backwards in time just for a second to the committee reports to add a brief summary of the MPAC meeting on behalf of Director Kim, who is not able to join us in our meeting today. So there was a meeting on June 28th. Metro gave an update on the community placemaking grant, which does support community-led arts and culture activities across the region. And applications for that grant cycle are opening up in August, and the next cycle of awards will be in January. So I think that's a good thing to bring out to the public. And Metro also presented an update on the TOD, Transit-Oriented Development, which we've been talking about so much. The TOD strategic plan, which formalizes Metro's commitment to fostering equitable and climate-friendly communities along the region's transit system by setting new goals around affordability, climate, and racial equity. The program remains focused on building dense housing along frequent transit. So we're going to stay tuned for more on that. And lastly, Metro presented on the potential of middle housing to address some of the region's housing needs. We hear so much about affordable housing. The missing middle is the other piece. This work is going to help inform the Council's decision on whether or not to expand the urban growth boundary in the future. So stay tuned for that important conversation. And so with that, that concludes the items that were brought up at the June 28th MPAC meeting. And I'm sorry, but I won't be able to answer any questions if you have any about that. But I wanted to make sure to get that on record. Any comments? All right, and if you have questions, we can certainly get them on record and figure out how to get answers. Okay. All right. With that, I'd like to move us now into the next item on the board meeting, which is the consent agenda. Now, let's turn to the consent agenda. Now, items appearing on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by a blanket motion by the board. And this morning, we have one item on the consent agenda, and it is the approving the minutes from our last meeting, June 28th. So let me ask, would any directors like to request to have this item removed from the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
I hear there's a motion to approve the item
Second.
contained in the consent agenda. We have a second. Thank you, Director Frisbee. It has been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? All right, seeing none, we're going to move right to a vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. I gotta get more practice with that gavel. All right, I shouldn't be so bashful. We will now move to resolutions. Our first resolution on the agenda is resolution number 23-07-33, authorizing a modification of an intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County for district. This is the first resolution to come before the board this morning. It's, let's see here. Mr. General Manager, your comments?
Thanks, President Gonzalez, members of the board. We wish to expand the services that Multnomah County District Attorney Office provides TriMet. This will help our efforts to provide safe, reliable transit service as we work to address and decrease criminal activity happening on or near our transit system. TriMet's current intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County District Attorney's Office will not expire until 2025. However, this modification will add the services of a second deputy district attorney plus the services of 2 district attorney investigators to the IGA. Our Executive Director of Security and Safety, Andrew Wilson, has worked on this proposal with the District Attorney's Office. This will bring greater accountability and more justice for those who victimize people on our systems or damage our property. So I want to bring Andrew up and also Julian Samuels, our Deputy DA that's on board with us right now.
All right, well, good morning, President Gonzalez and TriMet Board of Directors. It's great to be here with you today. I've got a short presentation which will kind of go over our current program. Since taking this role about 1.5 years ago, you've heard me bring a lot of new positions and new tools to the system, and also increased personnel, as Director Edwards shared from the CAT committee. We are doing this again in the DA space. I want to introduce a very important person in our program and a friend of mine, Julian Samuels, who is our current Deputy District Attorney and who's been doing fabulous work. As we go through this slideshow, you're going to see some pictures that I've shared with you before, and you'll see Julian featured prominently because he's a key member of our team and is out there with us, so we really appreciate him. Next slide, please. So our current DA contract allows us the ability to have a Multnomah County DA embedded with us there at the Public Safety Office, working alongside our transit police, as well as our security personnel to develop and thoroughly investigate cases alongside in real time. Also take advantage of our surveillance capabilities here at TriMet to really make sure we're pursuing the right cases. Julian has been an extremely effective advocate for TriMet, and also I just say for our employees who suffer assault and abuse on the system, and Julian has done just a really wonderful job in advocating for us, also meeting with our ATU on a regular basis and providing information to them so that they are at the table and understand what we're working on together. So really appreciate Julian's work. Again, you'll see him in the front row. That is at Hollywood, where we were doing a joint mission alongside of several members of our team, our transit police, our customer safety supervisors, obviously our DA, and just a station up was our safety response team, who we don't put with them in joint missions, but available and nearby to deal with some of the folks that might be encountered out there on the system. So this contract has been very successful for TriMet. It allows us to have a DA, again, work alongside our team, but also become very knowledgeable of our system and TriMet-specific codes and rules, which helps the structure of cases and make them effective. So been very, very successful program. Next slide, please. You've heard me talk about, over this last year in particular, about some of the challenges we're seeing on the system. It's not just us at TriMet, but the city and the region in general, and also just mass transit across the country, as I visit with peers, have seen an uptick. And the uptick has been primarily in Part 2 or Type 2 crime, things that are associated with misdemeanor. This is just one example of the type of work that a misdemeanor DA would be working on, which is kind of the vandalism and breakage of glass that is out there on the system. A lot of the folks that do this are repeat offenders. They're known to us in different circumstances. And so it's now costing TriMet about $1.3 million annually. And this is just for glass bus shelters and for LRV train windows. So not counting bus as well. So some significant upticks have been happening. Now I'll say, if we could go to the next slide, please. A misdemeanor DA would allow us to centralize the 250 or 300 estimated active cases at any point in time that are out there. Currently, those are being handled by the entire DA's office, and so multiple DAs are being assigned to this. They don't have the familiarity with TriMet. And that decreases the effectiveness of that caseload and how it's managed and advocacy for TriMet. So we would like to add an additional misdemeanor DA to work alongside Julian, who he could train and partner with to improve the thoroughness and quality of the investigations, and also provide some succession planning when my friend moves on from us, which hopefully is years or decades from now. But that is important to the program. Now, I'll just bring up that misdemeanors don't just equate to property damage. These could be menacing claims. They could be minor assault claims that fall into that bucket as well. So this person would be working alongside Julian. Now, Julian serves as the felony DA. He has about 125 to 150 active cases at any point in time, so they're a little bit more high level. And so this would allow some of those smaller cases not to drag him away as well, too. So that's what we're asking for in relation to that. Now then, if we go to the next slide, please. You've heard me talk about a lot this year about our increases in staffing, and I actually be providing an annual report to this board in September on safety, the annual report, and you'll hear even more about that and some of the sustained momentum and reduction of some of the incidents that we've been seeing out there, which we've celebrated and are going to continue to work towards. I bring that up because one of the cases or the issues that we continue to struggle with is increasing our law enforcement personnel on the system. As you guys are aware, we're still at 19 of a budget at 65. We've been able to move the needle on every other tool, but it's very difficult to find law enforcement to participate in our program, and that's not just unique to us. We're down law enforcement in the city in general. I bring that up because some of that has impacted the quality and thoroughness of our investigations of the crimes that are committed on the system as law enforcement personnel for TPD, as well as the adjacent and vital law enforcement like Portland Police Bureau have not been able to investigate the same way that they would have in the past with full staffing, that sort of thing. Bringing on 2 DA investigators would allow Julian and or a misdemeanor DA to be able to tap into quality, tenured professionals in this work of investigations. A lot of these are retired law enforcement. And they would be able to provide that thorough level of investigation to be able to build the cases and hold people accountable when necessary. It would also act as a force multiplier because our transit police will not necessarily have to be helping Julian craft cases by following up with surveillance, take witness statements, etc. They can spend more time on the system, and our DA investigators can assist with the investigations, if that makes sense. So I just want to put that out to you. That's one of the key pieces of this as well, is that we're going to free up transit police to do more work on the system and increase the quality of our investigations. So short, kind of and sweet kind of discussion there, but we wanted to open ourselves up for questions, and Julian is here with me as well to ask questions, so feel free to pepper him. He's a trained attorney, so he'll be fine. Any questions from everybody?
All right. Thank you very much. I see some questions coming up. Director Edwards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for that presentation. I just had a question about what level our CCTV is and how does that enhance the efforts in order to make sure that we're keeping folks safe and being able to nab, so to speak, those persons that are causing problems on our system. And what is the timetable, do you know, or can you share with us for upgrading that so that we do have a sense of security that can be shared with the public in regards to not only the transit riders, but also the stations where they're waiting to get on transit?
That's a great question. You've heard me share about a security desk that we're building in our Operation Command Center at Center Admin. We have been improving our security surveillance capabilities dramatically over the last several years. We are a real leader in this space now in the transit community for our surveillance. If you haven't been to our public safety office, I think I've invited several of you, but you'll be able to see kind of what we've been up to in terms of that capability. We had 1 person in that when I started in this role. We're now have 4, I think, active as of today. So Julie and I were just discussing that earlier, and those people are monitoring cameras and following up on investigations. But we're also building a security desk, which I mentioned earlier, which is going to be a 24-hour operation manned by dispatch personnel as well as contract personnel to really respond in real time to some of the events that are going out there, and using video surveillance to do that, to be able to send the right tool to that situation. Sometimes some of the calls that come in are related to the best tool really is our safety response team. And you heard from Allison, one of our fabulous members, earlier today. We'll be talking about that a little bit more today in terms of the safety response team, but it is truly best in class. And having the ability to send folks out to deal with houselessness issues, mental health issues, drug addiction issues, versus law enforcement personnel is the right approach, and it's the approach we've taken. It's the community engagement approach that we're using here at TriMet. They are the best kind of tool for that. Now, I say that because we have a lot of different roles now across the agency, which we've developed over the last couple years to really enhance our ability to respond with the right level of personnel. Now is the time that we need to build that dispatch capability to be able to respond and send those out. And so, excellent question, Director Edwards, and I'm excited to tell you that we are literally constructing that and also working with personnel to build that capability. So we have that dispatch capability at the security desk. And once we get it built, I would love to bring you all out. So,
thank you. Are you exploring body cams as well?
We have had body cam discussions in the past. We're not actively exploring that right now. There's lots of questions around that technology. I'll tell you that right now with our surveillance capabilities, we have such good surveillance. A lot of the interactions are under surveillance currently. So,
Thank you again.
yeah.
And I saw a hand raised over here, Director Frisbee.
Thank you, and thank you both for being here today. I want to just take a moment and acknowledge, I think, how challenging and important this work is. We know how important it is for our riders to feel safe on our system. We know how important it is for the TriMet team to feel safe on the system. And we know how important it is for possible riders to perceive that the system is safe. And at the same time, striking the balance between not unduly participating in a racist and unjust system that can be punitive and ruin people's lives in the other direction is a hard challenge. And so I really appreciate you both and your work and thoughtfulness. And I want to say, I know we've got the PPI contract up next. I personally feel I really appreciate that these are both coming here together. I really appreciate that this whole system is approached in the same way, and without the sort of increase and expansion of the safety response team and the work of the safety response team, I think I would probably have a lot more questions. So thank you. Thank you, Allison, for your comments earlier and your work. Can you talk, and Deputy District Attorney Samuels, your name is spoken of glowingly by all of your team members. So, but I'm hoping you both can talk a little bit about the sort of prosecution side of things. And as I told Chief Safety Officer Wilson earlier, I will say I personally have a bias. I have family members whose lives have been ruined through a combination of bad choices and personal trauma and very zealous prosecutors. And so I just would love to sort of hear how you approach that and navigate keeping the system safe and making sure that people are held accountable, and also, when it's possible, rehabilitating folks and helping them find a new opportunity afterwards.
First, I want to say thank you to the entire board for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak. And to answer your question, Director Frisbee, when we're talking about prosecution with the TriMet Deputy District Attorney position, it's not over prosecution or blind prosecution. The goal is community safety, and the goal is also accountability. And the fact that TriMet and the transit system is so involved in not only Multnomah County, but the tri-counties as well, it's a situation where having the CCTV, having multiple deputy district attorneys being able to review reports, speak with investigators, and get to know the actual system is beneficial to community safety. And at the district attorney's office, there's multiple different programs that the deputy district attorneys have available to them to offer to defendants. Additionally, when a case comes in, it's reviewed, history is looked at, and the ultimate goal is not only community safety, but it's also to help that defendant get on the right path. The ultimate goal is zero police contact in that person's life going forward. And depending on the situation, that could be a treatment court or that could be incarceration, but that situation is always dependent on that defendant. Everything is case by case, but the ultimate goal is zero police contact for cases that come in and for community safety overall.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Kellogg?
Thank you. First, Andrew, I want to thank you I spent about an hour and a half with you last week learning about all the different security personnel and their roles and things. And so I wanted to thank you for that. And then also DDA Samuels, thank you. As Director Frisbee said, your name is praised throughout the organization. So thank you for that work. Very supportive of the program, but I want to look at this from our role of financial oversight and try to make sense out of the dollars, if you will. So the existing contract, 3 years, $978,000, what exactly does that pay for? I assume it's DDA Samuel's salary, benefits. what else is in that bucket?
It's pretty much that. It's pretty much DA Samuel's salary. Yeah, and that's what's in there.
Okay, but benefits, other things all included in that?
Yes, the whole package, yeah.
Okay. So by adding a second DA and 2 investigators, that cost increase to $2 million over the course
Of the last 2 years.
The last 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say up to 2 DA investigators, because we're not sure if we're going to bring on 2. We just want to have the flexibility to do that in the last 2 years of the contract. But that's what we're asking for, yeah.
Okay. Just 2 substantive questions real quick. DDA Samuels, what's the most common felony that you prosecute for TriMet?
That's a tough question because on the transit system, there's obviously a lot of criminal mischief in the first degree, which is property damage to the MAX bus shelters, as well as a lot of violent crimes too. So there's a lot of assault twos that we see as well, with either riders being attacked with a dangerous weapon or even TriMet ATU employees being attacked with a dangerous weapon. I would say it's really a mix of felony property crimes as well as person crimes, with assault 2 and criminal mischief 1 being 1 and 2. But also, a lot of times with the assault 2, you're also going to have an unlawful use of a weapon. So it's a very balance between person crimes and property crimes.
Okay, and with respect to those who were charged and convicted, are they thereafter excluded from the system? Is that an option?
There's always constant discussion with TriMet's legal counsel regarding exclusions.
Yeah, we've really elevated our exclusions. Sam reviews every one of them. That goes into a certain period of time where we actually have an extended exclusion period. That's an additional tool that we've added over the last year and a half. Still makes it difficult for us to prevent that person from accessing, but what it does is it elevates that. We are able to publicize it, and when they are found in an additional incident, we can bring up the fact that they were excluded, which then can add to the charges and those types of things. So we do that, and as Julian completes investigations, that information is shared with our legal team and eventually is signed off on by Sam too. So,
Director Kellogg, I just would add that earlier this year, the board approved through an ordinance the ability to expand the general manager's discretion to issue exclusions in high crime cases. And he has used that discretion on a number of occasions in the last 7 months. I think about 7 or 8 have been issued. All of those individuals have been served while incarcerated and awaiting trial. So we've been able to serve them.
Great. Well, thank you for the information. I want to make that, I know we all agree security and safety is an essential part of what we do. So thank you.
Do you have a comment? Yes. Would you like to say some more, Director Edwards?
Yes, thank you. Just to kind of piggyback on that question, where does drug use come in? Because I know that we've had increased incidences of drug use, especially on the MAX light rail. And so where does that come into play in regard to those prosecutions?
yeah, I mean, obviously, drug use in the system is not allowed. Smoking even on the system is not allowed, has always been that way, right? We're seeing that nexus now where people are smoking drugs on the system. And we've been tracking that actually in the annual report that I provide in September. We're slated to provide the safety annual report. You remember, similar to last year, I'm going to have some updated stats in terms of what we're doing on inhalation claims, which are those claims that involve drug use on the system. But I will say that our community is facing a real drug epidemic on the streets. I think we all are aware of that. We are a pretty open system, and so that is, hurting us at TriMet in terms of our safety outcomes, has been for some time. Increasing presence, you see what our strategy is there. That has really helped reduce some of these interactions, which we'll talk about. But also, we've tried to reach out to our peers, create teams that know how to deal with addiction in thoughtful, proactive ways to connect people to resources, those types of things. So I really think TriMet is at the table with our community engagement kind of approach and doing a very good job in our community of being a change agent for for kind of expectations around drug use, and also trying to help people in the throes of addiction. So it is certainly something that is top of mind. We have certain areas that we focus on where there's distribution or dealing that we're aware of. We have heat map kind of indications on that. And so we do put personnel in those areas to at least protect our riders as we pass through some of those environments. But that's an ongoing struggle for us. And again, increased presence, increased law enforcement abilities, and increased prosecution in some cases are really the best tools we have. I will say, access control, you heard that today. I could go on for days about that. You've heard me talk about that in the past. I just want to respond to that a little bit this morning in the sense that we did complete that pilot. We made some obligations about wanting to hear feedback from the entire community because we don't want to exclude people from use. But at the same time, I will tell you the preliminary feedback, we have a meeting on that later this week, is very positive. And that's really thrilling to me in this role because Hollywood is just one area that's challenged by this. So if we can find some solutions related to access control, that's an additional tool we haven't had at the table. I'm really excited about what they can do, not only for us, but for others around the country. So.
And directors, if I may, just to add to that answer, for example, this morning, I also review misdemeanor and felony cases that are related to TriMet. And this morning a case came in that's a misdemeanor case, and I'm going to go back to the office and review that case for its final decision. However, at this time, someone else from the office is reviewing it in case I don't get back in time. But I'm here because I understand how important this meeting is, not only to TriMet, the DA's office of community safety, but having that second deputy district attorney. They understand the TriMet policies, they understand the TriMet mission statement, and that would alleviate any concern I have about me or whoever's in my position not being able to look at cases.
Thank you both very much. I just, applaud you because we want to make sure that TriMet doesn't come off as just being punitive. We want to make sure that if we can help people and direct them to resources, that's what we want to do.
Thank you. Well put, Director Edwards. I'd love to echo that sentiment briefly by acknowledging that it's clear that you're coming with a broad lens of how to address these issues, from addressing the backlog to the decriminalization efforts, to having folks within your kit of parts, your toolbox, as it were, because arsenal is not the right term in this case. Like Allison, folks with lived experience that I think are quickly becoming the sharpest, most instrumental bridge element to building that trust bridge between the public and every other piece of this system that is on the spectrum of enforcement. So I really appreciate that you're coming forward with that broad lens. I acknowledge that you're coming to this with a very humanist perspective, and I want to acknowledge that we did receive a letter of support from the District Attorney's Office about this particular resolution. So we have received that letter. I believe our board members have all been able to have a copy of it. And so with all of that, I'm simply looking forward into this, realizing that all of these tools, while they are uniquely useful in different situations, they all, none of them are necessary if we can address the way in which we interact as a civil society. We've got a lot of making up to do, but I know that we're out there in the public in a very complicated world, and so it's great to have every potential perspective, every lived experience, every tool in the shed at our disposal to do this work. The last thing I want to say before I see if there's any more comments before our vote is that the world is watching. The nation has taken note. I've noticed what little interactions I've had with other agencies. They're watching the work that TriMet is doing right now. And a lot of folks, cities much larger than ours, are paying attention to the tools that are being brought forward. So thanks for coming at this, being willing to learn and explore new frontiers with this. I appreciate the support of our partners. I simply hope that to get together, they're all seeing that in the end, what we want, as you so well put, is not more interactions with police, but less reasons to have those interactions, by making sure people are taking care of each other, taking care of the system, and in the end, creating a useful, safe, reliable thing for us all. So with that, if there any other comments? I see Director Edwards has a comment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a comment and a question, and I'm probably going to need some direction here. I have a language issue that I'm concerned about at the end of the first paragraph under background, where it says DA relies upon the services of investigators to help develop the facts supporting the charges. That word just bothers me. I would like some wordsmithing, perhaps using the word ascertain or something. I don't like the idea of developing facts to support charges.
So the general counsel, she's looking at it now, and
Are we in the board memo? Are we in the memo or in the actual resolution?
And actual, it's under the memo, yes.
So the memo's just a,
Section 6, background.
The language of the actual resolution, item 6.
Yeah, no, it's not the language of the resolution.
Oh, it's the background.
It's the background.
the memo is
But it's
just
just the
from,
language in there that kind of gives the intent that we're trying to develop facts instead of ascertaining the facts.
so the memo is not binding. It's just informatory for you, but perhaps you could address that you're not,
No, I think it's, yeah.
Fabricating
absolutely.
facts.
I think ascertain's a much better word for a variety of reasons.
we'll note that for future reference. Thanks.
Thank you.
That would be great to be able to make that adjustment then for the final record in the background, understanding the resolution remains intact.
And Director Gonzalez, or President Gonzalez, I should say, want to just close after Andrew's and Deputy DA Samuel's presentation to say thank you, first and foremost, and then want to just give you a quick update on the financial impact. This modification increases the total amount authorized by the IGA to just over $2 million over the remaining 2 years of the term. This amount is included in TriMet's approved FY24 budget for Safety and Security Division, and I recommend your approval.
If there are no other comments, I'd like to move us to a vote. All of those in. Did we move already? No? Did we go right into presentation discussion? Thank you. I'd like to request a motion. I have a motion here from Director Edwards. Do we have a second?
Second.
I heard Director Kellogg on this one.
Yeah, give it to him.
You wouldn't notice this is Director Kellogg's first meeting. Way to go. Way to go. We have a motion and a second. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, this motion carries. All right. We're moving forward now to Resolution 23-07-34. And the resolution now to come before the board is authorizing a contract with Portland Patrol Incorporated, otherwise referred to today as PPI, to provide the safety response team and customer safety officers. Mr. General Manager, your comments.
So President Gonzalez, members of the board, contract security officers who work on our transit vehicles and across our transit systems are a critical part of our overall security strategy. They are unarmed, uniformed personnel who provide an added layer of support while helping give our riders peace of mind. Portland Patrol, Inc., as you'll hear referred to as PPI, has worked closely with TriMet since 2018 and provides members for 2 of these teams, our safety response and our customer service officer teams. These teams have been an essential part of TriMet's Reimagined Security Program, which has roots in our extensive Reimagine in Public Safety and Security on Transit project that began in 2020. Using a community engagement first approach focused on intentional engagement and community-driven security solutions, We've developed a multifaceted team. The security response team and customer safety officers are an important part of that. The customer safety officer provides a presence as well as security support for riders and our employees during code enforcement. The safety response team helps those on and around our system in need. And I ride the system pretty much 4 times a week, and I have seen both of these teams out in force and also the presence of really helping people on the system. I've witnessed this personally as the leader of this organization. And 2022 alone, team members made contact with nearly 33,000 people. So I'm going to say that again. 2022 alone, 33,000 people, and provided more than 1,300 referrals to shelters, mental health services, and social services. So with PPI support, TriMet has grown the safety response team since it started, and we plan to expand it to 60 members this year. PPI personnel on contract with us receive in-depth training for their roles, but also cultural competency, de-escalation, and leadership training as represented or recommended by our Reimagining Public Safety project. The board has approved the 5-year sole source contract with PPI at its January 2018 meeting. Over the time, the contract was modified to a total value of $16.7 million. It expires at the end of this month, and we want to continue with the safety response and also our customer safety officers team and expand them. So to do that, this resolution would authorize a new 3-year sole source contract with PPI for $64.8 million. The contract will also allow TriMet the right for 2 additional 1-year extensions with a total not to exceed an amount of $108 million. This amount is included in our current budget. Starting with this fiscal year, about 80% of our safety response team budget is funded by the Oregon State Transportation Investment Funds, or STIF. So PPI has about 150 employees. 107 of those work under the TriMet contract. And of those 107, PPI reports 44% are minorities and 28% are women. Those percentages are just slightly higher than PPI's overall workforce, and your approval of this resolution is strongly recommended.
Thank you. And as I open it up for discussion, I just want to acknowledge we did also receive 2 letters of testimony from the Sheriff's Office as well as from PPI regarding this measure. So I just want to acknowledge we received it. Our board members have it in their packet. And now with that, if there are any comments, questions, concerns, we all know how to use the little cards. Okay. All right. I'm seeing none. And I'd say on the heels of the resolution we just discussed, we had an opportunity to chat a little bit about the benefits of having this multifaceted tool shed. So this looks yet like another one of the important tools out there. And thank you for illustrating a little bit of the scale of impact it's had. So I'll just open up a general question to give us a chance. What are you seeing from this group of folks out of the system that you're looking forward to seeing more of?
Well, I love that question, and I got to say that there are so many good stories coming out of this group. It's hard to distill them down. And I say this group, so there's 2 different elements here. There's our SRT group, and then there's our Customer Safety Officer program. Really appreciate PPI's partnership in developing this. You remember this was a pilot program which started for us in September 21 with 8 people. We have now budgeted 60. We're almost there, which has really been awesome. A lot of training has been involved with this team, a lot of training. And so we've developed these teams alongside PPI. I'm looking forward to, again, in September, an annual report, I'm looking forward to bringing some of those stories back forward. You might remember several months back, we actually brought some safety response team members here who actually told kind of their stories on the system. Beverly, who actually is out in the audience with us, was one of those. And I feel like there's just a lot of really good, compelling stories related to their work on the system. So looking forward to sharing that more with you in September and having some members of the team actually share their experience. When we did our Reimagine wrap-up over at the Public Safety Office, we had safety response team members there sharing their stories and their work, and it was just a really, really compelling, good time. And so I think we're getting somewhere there for our community and for our ridership. So not sure if that answers all your questions, President Gonzalez, but yeah, looking forward to sharing more.
Oh, thank you. And I'll yield the floor now to Director Frisbee.
You opened it up. I just wanted to echo that, and I think the board as a whole, not to speak for my fellow board members, but hearing everyone, I think, appreciates your work. And I hope I'm frankly surprised that it was only 1,300 referrals to social services. And I do hope that our other government partners were able to meet those needs and those referrals. And I know that's a big challenge and part of that work. So all of us in the community, I think, want to make sure that that net is there, and thank you for your part in playing it.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. I would say we've been growing this team, so expect more in the future, so I'm excited about that.
Director Kellogg?
Again, another cents at a dollars question. The expiring contract, $16.6 million, was a 5-year contract. The new one, authority up to $108 million. So given the multiplier in that, is that the number of people you're hoping to expand the force by, or what else explains that significant increase?
Yeah, one of the reasons we're doing a 3-year and a 2 is because we don't know how much we're going to expand, but yeah, it'd be a considerable expansion in year 5. Personnel, I think it's 249 personnel that we could have up to, so that there's a considerable expansion which could happen. We just want that ability to be able to do that. And I'll say that we expanded this team and asked for that mod a while back because of the fact we've been expanding this SRT group. So that $16 million spend was kind of where we got to, but we're looking for increases, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, I mean, the merits of the program are pretty clear, so thank you very much.
So TriMet is hiring. I'd love to add one quick comment to this. As this group grows, as the impact of this group is more felt, I want to echo a sentiment brought in, it reminded me earlier from today's public forum, and with all of the different skill sets that we need to have out there in our system, including the de-escalation training and much of what's already in your curriculum. I realize a growing thing that's just the nature, a sign of the times, has to do with how we're able to interact with the public in a world where everyone has cameras and smartphones and has different attitudes about how to use them. And so things like First Amendment rights, free speech, in the face of a public transit system are going to be things that I think we're going to be bumping into. If we don't already, or the extent to which we do, I highly encourage our field personnel to have a clear idea for what those lines are and what are the sort of practical best practices for us to leverage the fact that folks have cameras in our system. And so everything from us hearing about the individuals, humanizing them as whole, complete humans with lived experience so that we build that trust with them as people, all the way to our testimonials from our public, reporting systems when there's something happening on the system in real time, whether it's a handicapped accessibility issue or a potential threat for harassment or people smoking or doing drugs on the system. These items of streaming, filming, photographing, I think collectively, as a society, we're all trying to figure out how to do that properly. The extent to which our field personnel can kind of help establish the rules of the road, as it were, I think will be very useful. That's critical to how we are going to build that trust. So I encourage us to not only humanize one another by hearing about the great folks we have and their stories, but to also figure out how we're going to be able to interact in a public setting where folks really are trying to be there for us as well, and we need to learn how to leverage that input. So thank you so much for that. I'd love to move us now. Now I feel like I'm out of order. Did we do a motion? No. We haven't. Thank you. I've really got to work on my rules here. So I would love to request, is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-07-34?
So moved.
I hear a motion from Director Kellogg. Do we have a second?
Second.
Director Frisbee has seconded. We've had some discussion. Is there any more discussion, questions, before we move to a vote? Okay. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-07-34, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right. I'm going to try to get this one in the right order now. The next resolution to come before the board this morning is Resolution 23-07-35, determining that the terms of the Hollywood Transit Center Joint Development Agreement are reasonable and fair, and that the revenue therefrom will be used for public transportation. Mr. General Manager, your comments.
So President Gonzalez, members of the board, the purpose of this resolution is to bring TriMet in compliance with the Federal Transit Administration regulations around the Hollywood Transit Center hub. TriMet and Bridge Housing have reached an agreement in principle to grant a 99-year lease for Bridge to build and operate a 12-story affordable housing development. This is in coordination with TriMet's adjacent project to rebuild and replace the infrastructure at our Hollywood Transit Center. The FTA requires the board to determine the terms and conditions of the joint development agreement with Bridge are fair and reasonable to TriMet. Also, that the revenue that results from the agreement will be used for public transportation. So in December of 2021, the board approved the resolution declaring that the terms and conditions of the agreement in place at that time met FTA requirements. But as the project moved forward and additional public outreach was completed, it became clear that a larger building was an improved design and would better integrate with the neighborhood. So TriMet and Bridge engaged with Senator Ron Wyden's office and secured a federal review assistance from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to move the project forward with maximum financial benefit. The new, larger design and concept was well received by Portland Development Commission. However, as the terms of the original board-approved joint development agreement have changed, we come back before you today to once again ask for your approval. The proposed 99-year lease between TriMet and Bridge includes a number of provisions, which are all bulleted in your packet. So TriMet must obtain FTA's concurrence with the revised joint development agreement before the lease can be executed. So staff has conducted an extensive investigation into the terms of the proposed loan agreement and concluded that the conditions proposed are fair and reasonable. The TriMet budget infrastructure work on site is included in our approved FY24 engineering, construction, and planning budget. Bridge has committed to use certified firms for 50% of the project's design work and about 35% of the construction. So with that, I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. I'm not falling for that right now. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
I heard Director Frisbee first. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Director Edwards, thank you very much. Now I'd like to open it up. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? Director Edwards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question regarding the memorial that's going to be built toward the May 2017 tragedy that was there. Are the families going to be contacted and have some input into that? And what is that going to look like? Do we have any idea what that's going to look like going forward?
So I'm going to toss over to the people that's coordinating it, but yes to your question, so go ahead and move forward.
So thank you, Director Edwards. We are working so there's various levels. There is, as you're probably aware, there is also a lawsuit that is ongoing between the families, or some of the families, and TriMet. So working through our legal team, we are in discussion and direct contact with the families and their attorneys, and they're aware of the process. Within the project team as well, we have the original artist, Sarah Farahat, as an advisor to the project team. So yes, the answer is yes, we are working with the families.
Thank you.
Director Kellogg?
Thank you. Just another cents out of dollars. This is more a comment than a question. So currently, the land is just a parking lot, right? It's where buses turn around, drop people off, pick people up, right? Okay. And so with this development, 224 affordable housing units, we're going to make an incredible intangible benefit going forward. As far as the tangible benefit, there is a one-time lease payment of $1.5 million down at the beginning of construction or at the end of construction, occupancy, somewhere in there, right?
Correct.
Right. So you'd say, $1.5 million over 99 years, that sure ain't much money. But I want to direct the public to an exhibit that was included as part of the resolution that indicates, and this has been testified to a little bit this morning, about the benefits from the public space that TriMet's going to have available for staff. I think there's bike storage, and I think there's also going to be some retail space that presumably TriMet is going to receive the rental revenue from. So based on that Exhibit F, I see the total revenue projected is about $23.5 million. Can you confirm that? And that's net present value, obviously.
Yeah, and that includes the ridership, the increased ridership, increased fare revenue that we expect over a 30-year period. So correct, yeah. One of the reasons we need approval for this resolution is because it's a joint development in FTA terms, which doesn't require selling the property for fair market value. So you can take into account other benefits you get, other financial benefits, which is exactly what we've done here. Yeah, so we think there are substantial benefits in excess of that $1.5 million lease payment.
Okay, and just clarity on our role as a board about this fair share of revenue. Is the revenue that is directed to, is that just the lease payment, the $1.5 million, or is it the overall?
It's the overall financial deal, essentially.
Okay, and so when it says it needs to be directed to public transportation, is that all of the operations of TriMet, or is that just for, bus tires, or
yeah,
is
public
there any restriction
transportation
on that?
in these terms has a broader definition
Okay.
used by the agency toward public transportation, which is essentially the agency's purpose.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
A follow-up to that, just to be clear then, that means things like state of good repair would fall into that potential allocation of funds?
So just for an example on that $1.5 million payment, often when we sell property with FTA interest in it, it goes into what we call a restricted account, and it has to be used for a purpose that's authorized by FTA. In this case, FTA is saying you just need to use it for transit purposes, transportation purposes. So any purpose, it'll go into the general fund to be used for transportation purposes.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Director Edwards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think when I look at these bullet points, I don't see the ones that we talked about earlier regarding some enhancements or educational opportunities for the residents that are going to be there. And I would think that that's where they would be.
Yeah, those are in the lease agreement. Bridge has a pretty robust program for tenant support, and Kurt Krieger mentioned that earlier related to the hacienda role with Bridge. Once the building's built, there will be a requirement in the lease for them to provide those sort of tenant services. They provide those regardless, but we will have terms in the lease requiring those tenant services.
Okay, thank you.
And, thank you. One more clarification. The 99-year lease, knowing these are affordable units, is it fair for the public to anticipate then that it's during that 99-year lease period that the affordability criteria will be applied to the units?
Guy, I'll turn this one over to you. I know there's a Portland Housing Bureau requirements. I'm not sure of the exact length of that.
The answer is yes. So because this is a Portland Housing Bureau funded project by Bridge, actually within the legal structure of that funding agreement is that the requirement for affordability feeds through to the land effectively. So TriMet is committing to keeping these units affordable for 99 years as a result of this entering into this transaction and because it's being funded through PHP.
Thank you. And I did not see this in this iteration of the agreement. I might have missed it, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I have noticed that there's a growing awareness of the missing middle of income, and the fact that we have opportunities now to ensure that some of the folks that will be joining TriMet, that are going to become part of our operations, may be able to become potential applicants for some of these units. So I encourage us, as we look at TOD, to ensure that we have pathways for some of the folks that we're trying to bring into our workforce to be able to actually become applicants and be considered for the units that are part of this TOD equation we're becoming a part of. It makes a lot of sense. I don't know how that bumps into fair housing, but I want to make sure that we are looking at the opportunities to make that match.
Yeah, thanks for that. And we have talked to Bridge about that. They do a pretty extensive potential tenant outreach program at the time the building is gearing up for occupancy. And we can certainly make people at TriMet aware that the building is coming online.
Thank you. All right, I see no other hands raised, so I'd like to ask that we move to a vote. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-07-35, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Very good. Now, I'd like to move us to the next resolution to come before the board. This is Resolution 23-07-36, declaring certain real property as necessary for construction and operation of the Hollywood Transit Center infrastructure project. Mr. General Manager, your comments.
All right, thanks, President Gonzalez and board. So when TriMet acquires property by purchase or through eminent domain, Oregon law requires the board to declare the necessity and the purpose for the property. So this is the purpose of this regarding the Hollywood Transit Center redevelopment. The board adopted a resolution at its December 2022 meeting that authorized a contract with Raymore Construction for what's called CMGC, or Construction Manager General Contractor, pre-construction services. The board members followed up by approving a resolution in February modifying the contract to add construction work. So as part of the project, TriMet will construct improvements along Northeast Halsey Street, including new signals, a new bus shelter, as well as complete curb ramps and other features required for accessibility. For those improvements, TriMet needs to acquire certain interests and real property located along 41st and 42nd Avenues, as well as Halsey Street. We have taken great care to ensure the least amount of impact on private property. So as such, we'll need to only acquire small permanent easements and temporary construction easements from 3 owners. One, AT&T of Ohio, Hollywood Crossing, and Baskets Unlimited. We anticipate the negotiations with these landowners will be successful, and TriMet will not need to acquire the properties by condemnation. Purchase of necessary property is a cost that's included in the budget, and I recommend your approval. So I've asked the same 2 individuals just to stay put for your questions.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Director Frisbee, and we have a second, Director Edwards. Does anyone wish to make comments before we vote? Yes, Director Edwards?
I have, I guess, more of a kind of a question than a comment. I know that oftentimes when we're doing these new projects, we take in consideration the ADA, but there's also little nuances that aren't in the ADA that are left out. And I just hope that we get some input from the CAT committee, Committee on Accessible Transportation, to help with the enhancements that are going to go along here, so that there's audio and visual signage and soundboards or whatever it takes to make sure that folks can access any and all of the areas around there that are necessary for those that are using the transit.
And I'm pleased to hear that, oh, sorry, you want to respond to this?
He was going to respond.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I mean, can we have Catherine Sheridan here as well, who's actually the project manager for the Hollywood project? But I think, I'll speak on her behalf, and if I'm wrong, Catherine.
I can sit next to you.
Why don't you
Okay.
sit- why don't you take my
Moral-
seat,
moral
take my seat.
support.
There you go.
Here. Hello, board, TriMet board. It's lovely to be here. This is my first time, so this is wonderful. We've taken this project before the CAT a couple of times, and they've reviewed it, and we're working to make these intersections and these crosswalks, bring them up to the City of Portland's code. Currently, there just isn't space for people to safely cross or for us to build those to ADA code.
Thank you very much, and you, I know you have been before CAT, and we certainly appreciate that, and we just want to be assured that we don't build something and then we somehow have left folks out, so
Yeah.
that's critical.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I was pleased to hear that this pathway looks like the viable one, and condemnation doesn't sound like is a path we expect to be coming back to the board with. So kudos to the folks that navigated and brokered this process with our neighbors. I certainly hope that the process continues to be smooth as we go through this project. All right. I'd like to move us to a board vote now. So all of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-07-36, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, this morning, the board will consider Resolution 23-07-37, authorizing a contract with L.B. Foster Company for concrete railroad ties. Mr. General Manager, your comments, please.
So, President Gonzalez, members of the board, some components of the original MAX line, especially the MAX Blue line, are almost 40 years old. And I think at our last meeting last month, I talked a little bit about that. Up to half of the timber ties along the Banfield corridor needs to be replaced within the next few years. And TriMet has the opportunity to complete that critical work with less impact to our riders by performing it concurrently with a planned shutdown for our Better Ed project. While the replacement work will be completed by CMGC, TriMet has decided to procure concrete rail ties for the project separately. This is due to the long lead times associated with the tie design and the manufacturing process. TriMet invited to bid results only in one proposal from L.B. Foster, and we'll be able to talk about that as well on why one proposal. But anyway, L.B. Foster's bid was just under $2.7 million and was determined to be fair and reasonable. This was based on TriMet's independent cost estimate as well as the agency's recent and past purchases of concrete rail ties. This resolution would authorize the award of a 3-year contract to LB Foster. It includes authority for potential future modifications totaling up to $400,000 or 15% of the contract value. This amount is included in our Maintenance Operations Division's approved FY24 operating budget. TriMet did make efforts to contact other potential bidders to kind of find out why or why not they did not submit a proposal. And we determined various additional costs would have pushed those bids much higher or delayed the desired timeline. So LB Foster has about 970 employees. 22.6% of the workforce identifies as minority, and then 10% as female. The firm plans to self-perform most of the work. However, it has identified as a Oregon COBID, which stands for Certification for Business Inclusion and Diversity firm, and also Blue Mountain Freight for shipping. So shipping will account for about 9% of the total contract value, and your approval of the resolution is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou.
David.
Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. Do we have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Director Edwards. Anybody on the board wish to make a comment or pose a question before we vote? Oh, thank you, Director Kellogg. I missed that one.
Thank you. I just wanted to compliment the General Manager and whomever assisted you in drafting this memo. Incredibly thorough, explained why the process went the way it did, and justified the decision. And so I encourage you to keep doing that. Appreciate it.
Yes, indeed. I echo that sentiment. Thank you very much, Director Kellogg. Thank you for providing some context with regards to the single bidder. And, of course, being able to get the information about their subcontracting plan that includes 9% COVID.
Thank you for that. We have world-class employees here.
Well done. Any other comments? All right. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-07-37, please do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries. Let's get them railroad ties. Now we're moving to the final, thank you. Thank you very much. Well done. Now we're moving to the final resolution to come before the board this morning. This is Resolution 23-07-38, authorizing a contract with David Evans and Associates for design services for the Beaverton and Oregon City Transit Center redesign project. Mr. General Manager, your comments, please.
Thanks, President Gonzalez, members of the board. In 2022, TriMet was granted 2 federal grants for improvements and upgrades to our transit centers, one in Beaverton and the other in Oregon City. TriMet wants to use these awards in combination with our STIF funding, our statewide transportation improvement fund money, to redesign the 2 facilities for future ridership and improvements that will make the transit centers more functional for our operators and riders. So in Beaverton, we're also looking at upgrades and expansions to accommodate our 60-foot articulated buses and also zero-emission buses there. And we would like to install powerful new chargers to keep our growing fleet of battery electric buses moving. If funds become available, TriMet will also like to expand improvements to include proposing Gateway Transit redesign project, and we notified the potential bidders of that perspective. TriMet used a competitive request for qualifications for this process. Despite a considerable amount of outreach followed up, David Evans and Associates submitted the only proposal. TriMet believes the firm is well qualified to perform the work. At $3 million for a 5-year term, we believe that the negotiated rates for design work are fair and reasonable in relations to the local market for this type of work. The negotiated amount is included in our FY24 engineering, construction, and planning budget, and it includes FY24-25 STIF funds as well. David Evans has roughly 970 employees. On diversity, more than 17% identify as minorities and 33% as female. The firm expects to use our DBE, or Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, certified subcontractors for 32% of the work, and your approval of the resolution is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Before we go into comments, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2307-38?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Frisbee.
Second.
And Director Kellogg, you seconded. And I see you have a hand raised.
Yeah, just one point of clarification. You mentioned the grant funds and the STIF funds. Does that cover 100% of the $3 million, or is there any contribution out of TriMet dollars?
Hi, good morning, board members and President Gonzalez. I'm Michael Corrente. I'm the project manager for both of these projects, or potential third, as Sam mentioned. Yes, they are. It's 100% covered, so we don't anticipate seeking out general funds or anything else. So it's covered by the federal earmarking grants, and then also our STIF fund that we have.
Okay, and thank you for coming up, because first time I've ever run into the term operator layover area. Can you just elucidate that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a fancy name for the crew room, basically. So our operators use that room to have a break, use the restroom. What you don't see in these two graphics is the improvement of those. Right now, Beaverton is roughly 700 square feet, so pretty small. So as we grow, we anticipate needing that OLF, or crew room, to be about 1,200 square feet or 1,600 square feet if we can get it. But then also Oregon City is about 200 square feet, and we expect to get that up to about 1,200 square feet. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Director Frisbee?
Apparently I got to work on my science skills still, sorry. Thanks for coming up here and answering some quick questions. Just to help me understand, the memo mentions that there's opportunity and space for charging. Is that also, I know there's been discussion of hydrogen powered vehicles. How is that incorporated into this planning? Is that outside of the scope? And then I'll just get my other question out so you can answer them both. The second is, I was surprised to see that there was only one bid for this. It's a giant project. And so I appreciated the explanation, but if you have any other thoughts or insight that you feel like you can share, it makes me a little anxious if we're heading towards a world in Portland and the surrounding area where we're not getting a lot of competitive bids on this work. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Jamie Snook, the Director of Major Projects. Thank you for having us here. To answer your question about hydrogen versus battery electric and charging, we're exploring both. Our system would need both of those alternative fuel sources. At the Beaverton Transit Center, we know that we will need charging there regardless of whether or not we go forward with hydrogen or not. I'm going to let Mike talk about the bid.
Yeah, so with that, we did a follow-up, a couple of phone calls to find out some of the folks that were on the pre-proposal meeting of why they did not propose and only have DEA, the only one. Basically said that they just don't have the staff. They don't have the time. They don't have the allocation of people to put on the project. It costs them about $30,000 to $40,000 to put together a proposal, and just the bandwidth wasn't there. We thought as a good strategy to put these two, possibly three together to kind of up that price, right? That cost, or that potential fee. But unfortunately, that's what shook out. We only had the one.
Are you seeing that happen? Is this a one-off, or is this a trend?
Well,
who knows?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Difficult question.
It's a very difficult to difficult question to see into the future. But we do know that there are a lot of projects out there and limited number of firms. And so we are seeing that firms are really going after the bigger projects and not necessarily the smaller projects. And as we move forward with other capital projects, I get a little nervous about how this will impact our industry. But that's a side note. I shouldn't have said that. But yes, we don't know yet.
Thank you.
And I would also say to you, Director Frisbee, so just the Interstate Bridge project that's in, so there are 54 contractors that they're looking for right now to work on this project. So everyone is stretched thin. And if you think about the tolling projects, what we're doing on I-5, the bridges in all of the different locations, a lot of work.
I think we just freed up some contractors on the tolling in the Rose Quarter project.
Good point. Good point. All right. Well, I simply just want to add that, you know, it's clear that there's been a bundling of things that are happening in these projects, and in part it's updates to the fact that we have new bus types, both in how the size they are and the type of fuels they use. So kudos for updating our infrastructure that way. And there's some upgrades to the actual rider experience, pedestrian safety, for the bus shelters themselves. I look forward to getting the eye of the CAT committee on the ways in which these new sort of amenities are going to be experienced by our riders. But it all looks like a fantastic set of upgrades to the rider experience and to our operators. So I look forward to a smooth process, and I'm glad that DEA was able to actually come forward and supply this. So I look forward to hearing how this work unfolds. With that, I'd love to move us to a vote. Comments? No, we're good. All right. All of those in favor of approving Resolution 23-07-38, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right. Thank you very much for the presentation. And that concludes our resolutions. And there are no ordinances today to consider. So if there's no other business to come before the board, then I would like to adjourn the meeting.
Were you going to make an announcement about the general manager's
Oh.
appraisal process?
Thank you. I have the board meeting, the board housekeeping next. I wasn't sure if I adjourn the meeting and then go into board housekeeping. Did I mention this is my first meeting as president? If not, here we go. So, thank you, General Counsel Devine. So, there's no other board business, no other business to come before the board. I'd like to make an announcement. There's a little bit of housekeeping. I'd like for everyone to be made aware that I'm kicking off the general manager's annual performance review process. And as part of this process, I will be talking to all of our board members, those who are present today and those who are absent today, whether it's your first meeting or you've been here for several. And I would like to also report that I am going to be working with a small ad hoc committee to be providing input on this performance process. I've already invited Directors Way and Director Lewis to participate in that process, and so we will be working together and bringing forward some comments. And so stay tuned, fellow board members. I'll be reaching out to you as well as part of that process. With the intent that I will be bringing forward a report to present to the public at our September board meeting, and the August meeting is going to be canceled. So that covers our board housekeeping. Director Edwards?
The CAT committee will not meet until September either.
Thank you.
I forgot to mention that.
Thank you. And Director Edwards just notified me the CAT committee will not be meeting until September as well. So with that, we will be reconvening our next regularly scheduled board meeting on Wednesday, September 27th. And if I'm not mistaken, we will be at a different location. Are we in Beaverton for this one? Okay, we will be in Beaverton, and you can look at the website for details on that meeting on September 27th. Again, we will be in a hybrid format, so I look forward to seeing you in person and or online. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. With that, the board meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.